Hey there, it's Linda in Belize. Many people ask about the process of shipping items into or out of Belize. So in this video, I'm going to talk about process, time, and cost. So what kind of things am I going to cover? Well, the first one is documents. At times, you need to send documents out of Belize. For example, I recently sold a property in Canada and needed to send the paperwork back with a written signature. So I'll cover how that worked and the cost. In addition, you may need to get items into Belize. Perhaps you need credit cards, you need some mail that you're going to get in, like checks, and I've done that in the past as well. In addition, I like to receive Amazon and other purchases, so I have some specific things for my puppy that I can't really get in Belize, and Amazon, well, we get used to it in Canada and the US, and we don't get it as quick here, but we definitely can get it, so I'm going to go through that as well. Now, what if you do want to bring in other larger items from other countries? I'm going to talk about that as well. So let's first start with the process for documents, because many people need to send paperwork out or receive things like credit cards and checks in, along with any other types of paperwork. So how long does it take for documents? Well, of course, it depends how you send them. If you use the regular postal services, it's expected to take 2 to 3 weeks, if not longer. I had a friend that sent something from the US, and it took about 2 months, so quite a long time. If you use FedEx, which is critical in some cases, like my property sale that I did recently, I went into Tropic Air in Placencia, and they told me it would be about 3 to 5 days to ship to Canada, Edmonton, Alberta specifically. And you can see here that they came into Placencia and then they got the package on Monday, October 7th, and it was received at 8:14 a.m. So I brought it in on Friday, went into Belize City on Monday, and luckily it got delivered into Edmonton Wednesday at 1:41, so less than 3 days from the time it left Belize City. So I was very surprised about the quick time frame of FedEx. So some other comments on documents. When I was shipping my items out of Tropic Air and Placencia, they said they could only ship out using FedEx, but they can receive items using DHL as well. And then when I think back to when I lived in San Pedro, I had to ship some documents to Guatemala, and they told me to use DHL. And there was a DHL outlet where you could ship documents out. It was actually at an insurance company, so it was a little hard for me to find initially, but I was able to ship DHL out of San Pedro. So when you're shipping items out, it depends where you are and which kind of services you can do, but either way, it is very simple and very quick to get documents in and out of Belize if you use the courier services. So how much does it cost? Well, my papers were put into this regular FedEx envelope, and the cost was 126 Belize, which means 63 US. The great thing though about FedEx, of course, is the fact that there's tracking. Now let's talk about receiving items. I like to get Amazon regularly, especially stuff for the puppy. And so we're going to talk about how I do that. So the first thing I want to mention is that there's many shipping companies that ship from the US into Belize. Some of them are monthly, bi-weekly, and now the one I use is actually even weekly. For Amazon orders and any other small purchases, say you want stuff from Chewy, which is where I get my dog stuff for Coco, or you want a little bit of stuff from Home Depot, anything like that, it's best to use a company who's going to consolidate your purchases, because if you get many small boxes, it'll cost you a lot more. So my company takes all my small items, packs them really tightly into a box, which I'll show you the size of the box shortly, and that is the way you want to go, because a lot of shippers that you use will give you a price for shipping, but then you have to factor in many other costs. And I want to give an example of this. When I first came to Belize, I wanted to bring in 2 cooktops, and I called Hyde Shipping, which is the company recommended the realtors I worked with initially. And Hyde Shipping said, okay, this is what the cost is going to be. And once those cooktops came in from Miami, I got a call saying, okay, well, here's your customs and duty cost, and how are you getting them to San Pedro? I was never told about any of these items. I didn't know that the shipping cost wasn't everything included. But now I do have a company where everything is included, so you have one price for certain things. So I wanted to show the size of a box that I typically get, which used to be every couple of weeks, but now it's weekly, as I mentioned. And the shipper I use charges 30 US for this size of box, and that includes your shipping, customs, and your duty from Houston. So basically, I use the shipper's address, which is their warehouse, for all my Amazon orders, Chewy, any other website I want to order from, and then they consolidate it in as much as they can into this size of box, and it's 30 US. Now, bigger things with the same company cost a lot more, so in those cases, we don't use this shipper. So what shipping company do I use? Well, it's called Belize Queen, and I'm going to show you one of the other reasons I use them shortly.
The reason I like this shipper is because of the fact they have an app, so you can track all of the items that you get in and then also show your invoice and the dates of shipment. The only challenge I have with Belize Queen shipping is that they don't give you a lot of notice when they're delivering. For example, on a Sunday, they might say, hey, I'm going to be at your house in an hour, and that can be a little problematic if you're not there. Then you kind of have to wait till they're in Placencia again. I do have a friend that often takes shipments instead. Now, the other thing I just want to mention is depending where in Belize you are in Placencia and on the mainland, they do deliver to your house. Whereas if you're on the Keys, like San Pedro, they will ship it either on Tropic Air or the water taxi. You'll have to pay at that point where they bring it in and pick it up yourself. As I already mentioned, there's lots of other costs you need to factor in when you're shipping into Belize, because many shippers give you a price for shipping from the US, but there's other things that you have to pay that they don't necessarily know the amount of. The first one is customs and duty. You also need to hire a customs broker if you're not using someone like Belize Queen. And when you're shipping from Belize City, you have to get it to the ultimate destination, which also has to be covered. If it's a large item, you might have to barge it across to one of the keys. Now, we have shipped some items in from China as well, and for that, there's also other charges for the Panama Canal, which I'm going to show shortly. So everything that you're bringing into Belize has a different customs or duty percentage, and there is a website that I'm going to put in the description of the video where you can look at it. So this example is just to show you a lot of the extra costs for this specific item. So we bought items that were on the invoice $1,985 US. And the first thing I wanted to highlight from the customs document in Belize is the exchange rate. So you can see that the Belize currency is tied to the US dollar, but it's at 2.0175 for $1 US, which is not what's used at the banks, or when you're spending money here, it's a higher exchange rate. So that's the first thing to factor in when you're figuring out what you're going to pay for the extra amounts. So what is the duty rate for what we brought in? Well, you can see the description of goods here. This is just one page, and everything on this page is 20%. And I'm going to show you where that factored into our cost for what we brought in. So here is where I put the invoice cost in Belize dollars, because again, the exchange rate was a little over the 2%. We then paid Belize ship handlers. You can see the invoice here. That amount was $2,013.93 Belize. And then we paid our customs broker, which was a very minor cost, $250. Then we get into the Belize government fees. Now, this is what they have. This is what the picture looks like. I just put it into Excel so we can see what the total amounts are and what the percentage really is. So in this case, the tax base is what's a little bit odd. So even though our invoice was $4,000, you can see the tax base they used was $6,800. Now, one of the things that they do is they include the cost of shipping. So this $2,000 from Belize ship handlers gets included. But even if I added those two amounts up, I get $6,018. So not $6,802. So I have no idea how this was derived. There's no way I can reconcile it. But this is where they took the 20% fee. So this is what they charged us in total, $26,2310, as you can see in the picture here. But at the end of the day, there's a bunch of things to look at. So the first thing is these two costs here, the 20%. Then we have an environmental charge of 3%. So those amounts based on this tax base that I showed, where I don't know exactly how that's derived. The next thing though is GST. The tax base is way higher. So it is somewhere close to the total cost here, but again, I can't exactly reconcile it. Even without my customs broker fee, if I took that out, I still don't get their exact amount. So suffice it to say, I just wanted to show this to say I have no idea where these tax bases come from, but the GST based on this 8,600 Belize dollars at 12.5% GST is another $1,045. And then we have this other fee of GST amount, I guess, of $12.50 here. But either way, what I've done here is to really show that this $26.23 charged in total for customs, environmental, and GST, if I take that as a percentage of the invoice, we've actually paid an extra 65.5% of the cost of the goods we brought in, when the rate looks like it's only 20%. So the reason I wanted to show this example is not because it's a rate that you should use at all. It's just to show you that if you look at this table and think 20% is all you're paying, it's definitely not the case at all. So that was just a quick overview of the shipping, and if you do need a customs broker referral, make sure you reach out to me. The other thing I want to mention is that you should make sure you compare services to find the best fit for your budget and timeline. Some places are better for small goods, other for bigger goods, as I've already shown. Now, if you've shipped items between these countries before, let me know your experience in the comments below so people can see other examples of what people paid. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more helpful content.